Many of us collect a lot of lenses and really buy deeply into a camera system. But then, after a few years, we find ourselves gravitating to just a handful and leaving the rest packed away to rarely get used. In today's video, I'm going to run through the 5 lenses in my Nikon F-mount lineup that I find most useful and give you all of the reasons why. I will also give a shout out to some honorable mentions in my collection that I do still like, but just didn't really make the top 5 cut. Throughout this video, I'll be showing example images taken both with film and digital. Some of these I have taken and some of them my husband has taken of me and my son. So you've got a good mix of images here. There's lots to go through today, so let's get stuck in. Before we do, I do want to just cover off the lenses in my collection that just never really get used to give you some context of what I own here. Starting off, I have a few random kind of shitty zoom lenses, as do all of us, right? I've actually given away a lot of these cheaper style zoom lenses, and then the ones that I do still have, I have them packed away because I have that equivalent focal length in something that is far superior. This 24 to 85 f4 Tokina is probably the only one that might get used a bit in the future, as it supposedly was designed by disgruntled ex-Nikon engineers and is meant to be pretty decent. So at some point, I have been meaning to take this out, test it out, and see what it's like. Sorry, 28 to 85. If anyone has any info on this one or you've used it before, please let me know below. Is it worth my time? Do you want to see me use it? Before we go on as well, I just want to clarify that these lenses are just on, some of them are on random bodies just so they have a place to live. This isn't necessarily like a combo that I would go for all the time. Let's dive into some honorable mentions that just don't make the top 5 most useful lens cut. These few lenses I'm about to mention are still really great, but they just don't get used as much as what is in my top 5. So I did a whole video on this 28mm lens a while back to challenge myself, and it has a really good reputation for being very sharp, very versatile, and being able to focus really close. The only reason that this lens isn't included in my top 5 is for personal reasons and mostly stylistic. I just really struggle with the 28mm focal length, and it just doesn't really match the kind of vision that I'm going for when I'm out photographing. Most of you who watch the channel a lot will know that. So it's more so from that reason. But I think if you are into 28mm, you're doing a lot of like street photography and you prefer a wide angle, this lens is an absolute banger. If you don't own it, definitely check it out. I think it would be a great addition to someone who loves shooting with that focal length. But for me, it just tends to not really get used. I think what I might do to make use of this lens is pop it on a crop sensor like this camera here. It becomes a 40mm then, which I actually really like 40mm. It's like how the eye naturally sees, and I always gel well with that focal length. So I think I should do that. This 85mm lens is just another one that doesn't really get used very much. I will refer back to this one when I reveal one of the lenses that's in my top 5, but 85mm is just kind of a really niche focal length. I think a lens like this is perfect if you're doing portraits and you've got a lot of room to, move back and work with, then it really shines. But I find it difficult when I do shoots with people because I'm wanting more variation. I'm not doing just straight up portraits, and I'm often wanting to get in close, and that's a problem with this lens. So it becomes very limiting, very kind of like one-dimensional, and I don't want to have to change lenses. So if that's your thing and you're doing that and you are just like pumping out like traditional style portraits and you're out in like a park and you've got heaps of room to move around, this would be great. But for me, it just doesn't really work with how I shoot and the kind of jobs I'm doing. And I just find it, quite an awkward lens to integrate into my work. Also worth mentioning that at f1.8 at 85mm can get pretty shallow, which means that hitting focus is a challenge when using film cameras and older DSLRs, even with autofocus. Also worth mentioning that on my D610 video, someone commented and told me that this lens is known as the dust sucker, sucks in a lot of dust, which is not great. Nikon apparently fixed that with the D version. Thank you for that comment. Okay, so let's get into my top 5 Nikon F-mount lenses that I have found most useful over the years. I am going to run through these in order. So we'll go from 5 being like the lowest and then 1 being the winner. In 5th place, we have the quirky and compressed 80 to 200 f2.8. Okay, so this one comes in at number 5 because, to be completely honest with you, I never use this lens, but it's one of my husband's favorites. He's always talking about it. He always wants to use it. And I do love it when he does. If you see the images from this, it's just like, it can't be beaten. So beautiful. It's extremely flattering the way that it, compresses the background. I find it extremely flattering for, physique. Makes you look really skinny. It's the skinny lens. One quirky feature about this lens is its push-pull zoom, which I think does take quite a bit of getting used to. This is not the most technically advanced lens compared to some of the more modern AFS versions, and it's not the simplest to use either, but I do love the images that my husband gets with it. I literally never see anyone talk about this lens on YouTube, but when somebody occasionally does know about it, it seems like they are a lifelong Nikon fan, and this is just like a deep cut that gets them really, really excited. So if you are one of those people, please comment and let me know. I think that the images it produces are very magical, and in the right setting, it slaps. We do find that usually keeping it around f4 to 5.6 is the sweet spot. It can get a bit crazy busy with the bokeh at 2.8, but stopped down a bit, it really works well. Next up is the Sleeper, this 24 to 85 zoom lens, which doesn't look like much, but I love this lens. The Nikon 24 to 85mm will not gain any attention from lens heads, but honestly, if you're looking for a surprisingly high quality compact zoom and you don't need a constant aperture of 2.8, then this lens might surprise you. Whenever I make YouTube videos about composition, I always reach for this lens because I find it so much easier to get the crop that I want with the zoom and just, showcase different composition styles and make my point. And I also have always been an advocate for zoom lens on the channel. I think they get a bad rap sometimes, and especially in terms of composition, if you are a beginner or you're feeling in a rut, a zoom lens can be great for really honing your eye and trying out like different crops and then like finding the focal length that works well for you. I have a whole video on that. I will link it below if you are interested to go deeper into that whole kind of theory. I think the bottom of the rung kit lenses have kind of tainted lenses like this one that are actually quite decent quality, especially if you're photographing in good light or using flash. It does get a little wacky at 24mm, but from 28 to 85, it's honestly a lot nicer than you would expect. In third place, we have the classic 50mm 1.4D. I feel like talking about this lens or any fast 50mm lens is kind of just redundant at this point. It's pretty well established, especially here on YouTube, how versatile and useful something like a 50mm lens is. Almost to the point where I think people would even avoid using a 50mm because they would consider it to be a little bit generic and boring even. I think that's really silly though, because arguably 50mm is the perfect middle ground where you can do nice shallow depth of field portraits, intimate street photography, or really almost any style of generalist photography. And that's always going to be a great tool to have. Personally, I use this autofocus D version most of the time now as I shoot a lot more digital. But if you were going to get one for a manual film body, or you just want to have fun manually focusing, the AIS version, which I also have that lives on my FA, is a great choice. I also have the 50mm 1.8 AFS, and that is quite good too. Basically, you can't go wrong with a nifty 50 from Nikon. So my top two Nikon F-mount lenses are coming up, but first, I want to make sure that you guys aren't taking beautiful photos with probably your large lens and camera collections and then having nowhere to display those bangers. There is a reason that so many photographers choose Squarespace to display their work, and that is because it is easy to build out a portfolio in minutes and you don't need any website building experience. I've been using Squarespace for multiple years now, and it's helped me to build a creative career and showcase the many facets of what I do. Something I really appreciated is that Squarespace offers photography-specific templates for you to choose from, so you can get started straight away. From here, you can build out different pages. I highly recommend adding providing a contact form so people can get in touch with you. I also love choosing a brand color and a font so that it's all cohesive and looks very my own. Another great thing about Squarespace is your website can grow with you too. So if you are taking a lot of photos and building out beautiful landscapes or images that you want to sell as prints, you can do that through the online store. It only takes a couple of minutes to set up. I found it so easy to start selling my presets and PDFs through the online store with Squarespace. So if you've been putting off building your website, this is your sign to finally get it started in 2026. Simply start your free 14-day Squarespace trial today. And when you're ready to launch, visit www.squarespace.com/LucyLumen to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using code LucyLumen. In second place is the underappreciated 60mm f2.8 Micro D. I firmly believe that the 60mm f2.8 Micro D is one of the most underrated and most useful lenses. I'm super passionate about this lens because I pretty much built up my product photography portfolio with this lens mounted on my Nikon F100. So, it has good memories for me, and I feel like it projected me into a photography career almost. Or it did, not almost, it did, because I do have a photography career. I first saw its wonder when I used it to photograph some perfume that I bought myself. I did a whole set of photos with it and then sent it to the company. They liked the photos and then they hired me to do more work. This lens has been an absolute go-to for me on most shoots, obviously for close-up needs, but also just on normal kind of fashion shoots where you're getting a variety of different images. When I'm on a shoot, I can stand back and get full body shots at f4 to 8 and have enough depth of field that you can actually see all of the model, the dress or the bag, etc. But then I can easily come right in and get a shot of a detail like a button or a zip or a brand logo or something like that. And being able to move so freely on a shoot and get that variety of images without having to muck around and change lenses and then be taken out of, environment is just so amazing. So this lens has a special place in my heart, but it is also just really, really useful. All the reasons that I just mentioned are why I don't use the 85mm that we talked about earlier on, because it's just not going to be able to do all of that. Shorter focal length macro lenses kind of get forgotten about, as most people doing actual serious macro photography want something over 100mm so they don't have to get as close to their subject. This is obviously because they don't want to spook the animals that they are shooting or block the light, and in most cases it's just going to be better if you can hang back a little bit. So I think this being a macro lens kind of pigeonholes it in many people's minds and is the reason it flies under the radar so much and isn't even seen as what it truly is, which is a super versatile and high quality lens. I also have here the 55mm AIS version, and this is great if you don't need autofocus. Side note that these are both pretty useful and loved for film scanning, but depending on your setup, you might need an extension tube. And now for the big reveal. In first place, we have the most versatile lens in my Nikon lineup, the 35mm f2D. This lens is sharp, small, fast enough, can focus really close, and it's really, really great to use on crop sensor bodies like my D70-100, D200, and something else that I got recently, which you will know about if you watched to the end of my D610 review video. I did also show it earlier if you were watching closely. With a 25cm close focus distance, even on full frame, this can be really comfortable for closer up shots, but with a crop sensor, this thing basically becomes a nifty 50 that can go nearly into macro territory, which is insanely useful. But because this lens is a bit wider than traditional macro lenses, you get that extra bit of depth of field, which can really help when trying to get critical parts of a product in focus. So now when I'm using this lens on my D200, I feel like I can get any shot I want, ranging from full body through to super close up, and it just has a super bright and crisp way of rendering. I used it for a long time on my D70-100, but since getting the D200, this has just been such a great combo. I love the way that the CCD sensor renders colors, and this is just working so well for me. It also never looks wide and distorted. And if I do want to do photography where I need a wider lens, like my recent long exposure experiment, I can pop it on a full frame camera and it really shows all it can do there. I honestly believe that I would get by with my photography needs with just this lens. But with this and the 60mm macro lens, a full frame and a crop body, I think it would be hard to find a shot for my style that I couldn't get. It's all well and good to read the specs of lenses and focus on things like, how many elements it has and the sharpness and all of the things that are written down, the features, but these things have to translate, and you also have to be getting the result that you want with the lens, and then you have to enjoy using it, and it should be making the application easier. Whenever I review gear on the channel, I always like to focus on real world experiences and, going out and using it rather than just looking at the features of it and comparing it side by side to another and how it was made and getting really, really down to like the nitty gritty technical intricacies, which I know people do find interesting. And I know that sometimes they can be important, but really it's about the gear that you are using. And so often I am very guilty of this, a lot of gear and a lot of things lying around that are packed away or in drawers. And then there's a couple of things that we are picking up and using on a daily or weekly basis. So this video was meant to showcase that. And I hope that it has brought to light, a lens can be really good on paper, but maybe not actually in real life. It all depends on your specific application, of course. I do find that macro lenses or lenses that have really good close focusing are just so versatile, and this saves a lot of lens swapping. So if that's something that you were kind of sleeping on, I hope that this video has helped you to realize that. So all of this begs the question, what is missing in my lineup that I would actually get use out of? It's a no-brainer, really, but I should at some point get the OG versatile lens, the 24-70 2.8. Pretty much every professional photographer ever has used this lens heavily. They are a bit bulkier, but for certain shoots, it would be really handy to have one of these. In saying that, I've gotten by without one for so long, and I definitely could continue to, but if I see one pop up for a good for a good price, I would definitely bite the bullet and get it. Okay, so over to you guys. It's your turn. What is your most used or versatile lens in your collection? I would love to know. This video really is more about understanding your focal length and then what works for your style. And I think those are the things that we should be focusing on. So if you have any input there, please drop it below in terms of what works for you, what you use, what you like and get a lot out of.